Hello everyone, my name's Harps and a few of you requested for me to produce a video on the recipe for the mixed vegetable parantas that I made for Arjun a few days ago. It's a great recipe for baby-led weaning and also a great way to hide some vegetables into your baby's diet. Bearing in mind I did start weaning Arjun when he was 4.5 months old and he's almost 9 months old now, so whether this recipe would suit your baby depends on what stage they're at with their weaning. Also, as with any recipe, if there are any new ingredients included in this recipe that your baby has not yet tried and you're unsure would suit your baby, double check with your health visitor. I've got a list of all the ingredients below. This recipe should produce about 4 parantas and the dough can be kept in the fridge for a few days. If you have any questions, give me a shout. Ingredients you need for these parantas include some spreadable unsalted butter. I usually use lepak, some mooli, also known as daikon, some full fat milk, some besan, also known as gram flour, some cauliflower, spinach and kale. To this batch I'm also going to add some potato and some courgette. You also need atta, which is also known as chapatti flour, some olive oil, and also for spices I'm going to add a pinch of ground coriander and a pinch of masala. You can get most of these ingredients, or all of these ingredients, from any mainstream supermarket, so I do all my shopping at Tesco. Sorry about the background noise, by the way, I've got a little helper. Hi Arjun! What I'm going to do first is take my half potato, remove the skin and cut it into small cubes and place on the boil whilst I prepare my other vegetables. So I've placed my potatoes into some boiling water. The reason I cube my potatoes is just because they boil a bit faster, and what we're waiting for is for the potatoes to be soft enough to mash to add. I started by finely chopping the kale, and I usually find that using a ceramic knife works best. So I've got a set of IKEA ceramic knives which are brilliant. Chop up the spinach finely again. Now I'm going to grate the mooli. I've used about 1/4 of the entire mooli, so this is the rest of it. And before I grate it, I'm going to take off the outer layer and wash it. So the mooli is now grated. As you can see, I've used quite a fine grater, so it's not lumpy. I'm using about this much cauliflower, and again I'm going to grate it. You can see the cauliflower's a really fine texture, and I've removed any lumpy bits. Next is the courgette. Again I'm using about 1/4 of the entire thing, and I'm going to finely grate it, and I'm going to keep the skin on. As you can see, the grated courgettes have a very similar texture to the mooli. So whilst the potatoes were cooking, I managed to prepare my vegetables. The potatoes are now boiled. They took about 8 minutes in boiling water, and how I know they're ready is because if I poke them with a knife, they're really soft, so I'll be able to mash them. I'm now going to mash the potatoes using a fork. The potatoes are now mashed, the vegetables are prepared, so we're ready to make our mixture. I'm first going to add 100 grams of atta, chapatti flour, into a mixing bowl. Next I'm going to add the besan. Next I'm going to gradually add in some of the vegetables to the flour. The reason I added the ingredients in gradually is to ensure that the consistency is right. You obviously need an equal amount of flour to vegetables. Also, some of the ingredients are quite moist, such as the potatoes, the mooli and the courgettes, so I'm not going to add in any milk to bind the flour just yet. I'm going to gradually add in the vegetables and see how that goes, and then add the milk in at the end. I'm going to add in the remaining vegetables and potatoes. and mix them in. And once these are mixed in well, I'm going to add a pinch of ground coriander, a pinch of masala, and then use the milk to bind the ingredients. As you can probably tell, the mixture is already binding quite well with the vegetables that I've already used, so you need to work the milk in quite carefully because we don't want the dough to be too moist. I'm now going to add a pinch of ground coriander. I'm not sure why I didn't do this at the beginning. You can just mix it in at the beginning. And some masala. I've been quite keen to introduce Arjun to spices as soon as I felt he was ready, just because we do use them in our cooking. I'm obviously not overloading this with spices because obviously their digestive system is quite sensitive, but it's quite nice for him to try different flavours, and it's absolutely fine, according to my health visitor, for him to try different things. So yeah. So I'm just mixing this well, and as you can see, it's already formed quite a dough-like texture. Add a dash of full fat milk, just a little bit, because like I said, we don't want the mixture to be too moist. And I'm just going to work that in. I'm also going to add a dash of olive oil. The amount of milk I added seems to be enough. As you can see, the dough's pretty much ready. So I've transferred it from the mixing bowl to the worktop, and I'm just going to knead it with my hands now. And the way I do that is just by folding it inwards. If it feels a little bit moist, you can use some plain atta to just kind of get the consistency right, which I think I might need. So I've added some plain atta, and I'm just going to keep kneading it in. And you do this until the consistency feels right. So as you can see, the consistency seems right now after a couple of minutes of kneading. So I'm now going to cook Arjun his lunch. So to cook the parantas, what you need is a rolling pin, some sukka atta, which is a dry chapatti flour, the dough you've just kneaded, some unsalted butter, a spoon to spread the unsalted butter, and some tongs. You'll also need some sort of frying pan to shallow fry your parantas, and an Indian one is called a tawa. So before we start cooking the parantas, we're going to put the tawa on at a medium heat. So to start off with, I've broken a little piece of the overall dough, and what I'm going to do is dip it in a little bit of flour and roll it into a round ball to make a pera. So I've rolled my pera using the palm of my hands, and the heat of your hands helps to shape the pera into a nice round kind of shape. I'm then going to dip it in some sukka atta and just press down so that it's easy to roll. Just shake off any excess and just place it back down. I'm then going to use my rolling pin to roll it out into a thin, flat chapatti. Be careful that it doesn't stick to the worktop. If you need to, just dip it in a little bit more sukka atta as you're going. What you need to do is, as you're rolling, just sort of circle the rolling pin. So as you can see, I've managed to roll it into some sort of circular shape. You're never really going to get a perfect round shape as you would with a normal plain roti, because there's lots of vegetables in here, so the texture means that it ends up having kind of rigid edges. We're now going to cook this on the tawa. So I'm going to transfer this onto the tawa. So I'm just going to spread a little bit of unsalted butter onto this side. And the temperature of the tawa and the paratha means that the butter is melting quite easily. Just going to evenly spread that. and then I'm going to flip it using the tongs. And you can hear that sizzling away. Again, I'm going to let this cook for about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to spread another thin layer of butter onto this side. So again, I'm going to spread a thin layer of unsalted butter on this side. It smells really good, by the way. And you can hear the other side cooking away. So I'm just going to check whether the paratha seems to be cooking, and that looks about right. So I'm going to flip it over for the other side to cook and give that again another 20 to 30 seconds, and then we should be done. And Arjun's just woken up from his nap, which is perfect timing for lunch. As you can see, the other side also seems to be cooked, so the paratha is now done. Arjun's paratha is now cooled, and I've broken it into small pieces and transferred it into his Buddy and Bear plate. And I've also put some cottage cheese. You can use yogurt, cottage cheese, or anything really. Sometimes he eats the paratha plain, but I just thought it'd be a good source of protein for him. And here's Arjun enjoying his lunch.